So tell us about your childhood.
I actually feel incredibly fortunate for my childhood, and I look back on it in an incredibly fun way. I grew up in a tiny town in the Bay Area called Alameda, California. It's an island off of Oakland, and off of that island is another island called Harbor Bay, where I grew up, and my family grew up in kind of a community out there. And
Mhm.
but there's this huge dirt lot behind our house, and all the neighborhood kids had just amazing time riding bikes and hanging out. And childhood was amazing. And I started businesses as a young kid. My uncle had a video store in Alameda, and my parents sent me to work for him on the weekends when I was 7, and that's kind of what started my entrepreneurial and working career. But it was just a time period of my life, as it is for any child, that was incredibly formative, and gave me just so much depth at an early age and perspective about how I wanted to spend my time on this planet and be an entrepreneur. And I feel in a lot of ways, when I look back at that young man, I hopefully have done him well and done right, and I'm just trying to be a representation of what he dreamed about so many years ago.
Now we have Maple.
We have Maple.
Yeah, tell us about how it even came to be, because even just the name of the company is very significant.
Yeah, it is. So the name of the company and the company kind of coming to be, we got to take a couple steps back in this chapter, in this glorious chapter of Shopify. About 2 years in, again, I felt like, wow, I'm hitting some professional success in these things. But my wife and I, on the flip side, were also hearing like devastating news, right? So here's like back to the early part of this conversation. If you look at Instagram and you look at my life, you'd be like, Michael Perry's got it all fucking figured out, right?
Right.
Got the house, got the cars, taking the vacations, got the team, and then the flip side is like the heartbreak and sadness was like overwhelmingly consuming, because my wife is finding out that we can't biologically, through natural conception, have children.
Mm.
And we took a trip to Japan, and people are like, oh my God, your trip looks so amazing. It's like we cried half the trip, because we had just got this devastating news that we weren't going to be probably not going to have children unless we adopted, which we always will consider to add more beautiful children to our home, or if we explored in vitro fertilization. And we went to Japan. It was the fall, and it's a special time in Japan because the Japanese maples change color to represent the ending of the season, where everything goes from green. It's like the ending of life in a beautiful way. It's the perfect like yin yang balance, right? And so we went around Japan for 10 days chasing these red maples. And it was on that trip that my wife decided that she wanted to make the sacrifice for our family and try IVF. And so like that trip to me is just so symbolic of selflessness, of courage, of family. It's like it's this representation of change and the
Yes.
willingness to allow change to exist in your heart. I did not know on that trip how important that trip was going to be. I did not know on that trip that I was ever going to leave Shopify. It wasn't until I held my son for the very first time. I just remember this intense moment of time just standing still. Just realizing and feeling the most connected to my own life that I've ever felt.
Mm.
And just realizing that all the things that I've worked so hard for, material wise, don't matter to me anymore.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't matter. Like driving around a Porsche is just fucking full of shit. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I just realized that the thing that was going to matter the most, and that I felt it so deeply, that at the end of my life, the thing that's going to matter most to me are my boys. I just knew none of this other shit comes with me. Like, and that was the most pivotal moment and will always be the most pivotal moment of my life, because I feel like every human basically lives two lives, and their first life is full of confusion and they look at this life through the lenses of society, and then there's the second life that emerges, which is the truth that you only have one, and everything else that you thought mattered actually doesn't. And that moment defined who I am. It defines my body of work forever.
What has been a dad sense moment for you? And I mean, you are super in tuned to what I call mom sense or dad sense. It's our
Mhm.
built-in sixth sense, and it never steers us wrong. So, was there, an anecdote that you can share about your son that you were like, I got that right. I trusted my inner voice on that one.
Wow. It's hard because like I think at this stage of my life I have one fear, and that's ruining my kids. That's
Yeah.
my only fear, right? And so I would say I don't know if I can answer that question today, because I think it's going to actually be one of these things that my senses in terms of the environment my son is growing up in, and like me being emotionally available to him. And I put my son to bed every single night, and I read him story time every single night. And I think that my sense of getting it right is being involved. And
Mm,
the outcome of that won't be solidified for a long time to come. But I can tell you for certain that my sense on being there and being in his life and being a highly involved parent, my sense is that that sacrifice is worth it.
oh, yes.
That's my
Absolutely.
sense, is that I know my sense is that my son wants me there. My son needs me there. I should be there. And that body of work is far more important than the work I'm doing at Maple. And if
Mm,
that means that I sign off at 5 o'clock to be there for dinner, and that means that I have to work long after he goes to bed, that sacrifice, that sense, that's the one I'm probably willing to hang my hat on, is that I'm all in on my kid.
yeah, that's beautiful.